The Majestical Horseshit of the Horton 229, Hitler's stealth bomber, by literally just a channel called Lazerpig. Yeah, requested video. Usually I don't dabble with these history. I guess I did a couple of them, especially funny history video. Funny history videos are so good, man. Like, everything Salmonella Academy ever did is top tier content. So yeah, we're gonna check this out and see what this crazy ass bomber, presumably, what was wrong with it, because there are so many like World War II inventions that were just trying to make the impossible possible, that are just fucking stupid now that you look at it from modern standpoint. So I'm sure this is gonna be one of them.
The door opened. Hitler gasped as the towering figure of Hermann Göring stood over him. "You may be the Führer of Germany and the world," he purred, "but tonight I am the man in charge." He began to peel the tight uniform from his body, revealing the surprisingly toned silkskin torso of a true Bavarian.
Okay, I didn't know they made the history of Nazi Germany based. Excuse me if I didn't see this in my history book. Holy.
Scented candlelit room of the Berghof. "Oh, mein Papa," the Führer whispered. The lust he had held deep within him now erupted like the flames over Poland. That was an extract from a Hitler-Göring-Gela fanfic. That exists, and don't you wish it didn't? Was that important information to know? Yes, don't interrupt. Good evening, my name is Lazerpig, historian, breeder, mother of 12, man, presumably, and supreme leader of the world inside your head. You watched this video at your own risk. There is a lot to explain, so I hope you are sitting comfortably on your expensive computer chair, sofa, or beanbag if that's how
I am sitting on a sofa, actually. Thank you for making the inquiry, Lazerpig.
you choose to live your life. You're traveling with me on an adventure into a different dimension, through a door that leads to a world of historical drama where such petty, meaningless things such as facts and historical accuracy have typically held little sway over the denizens who dwell down here. From here on in, we dive into the quagmire of the Luftwaffe, an area of Second World War history so plagued with heroes of such a devotedly high caliber.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's how you spell it, but I don't wanna correct him because I'm not gonna spell it correctly too.
Many of them do not even realize they are one, and by opening yourself up to the knowledge held in this video, you may inadvertently find yourself becoming a target of their prepubescent aggression. I warn you, dear sir, madam, and or neither, from here on in, there is no turning back. You are about to enter the sweaty zone. Still here? Good. Right. Let me set you the scene. The room is dark. Yet in the darkness you gain a sense of just how impressive a room it is. Golden chandeliers hang from the ceiling, great tapestries and paintings hang from every wall, and in one corner a vast, dark oak desk dominates the scene. Standing at this desk is the equally large and dominating figure of Hermann Göring, mentioned earlier, Minister in command of the Luftwaffe and Hitler's named successor.
Is that how you spell it? Luftwaffe? I thought it sounds a little bit fucking different, man.
This is 1944. Göring has an impressive list of failures behind him, but he still commands respect, somehow, and still holds the ear of Adolf Hitler. But unlike his furiously defiant leader, Göring knows the war is not going well, and like Hitler, he clutches onto straws, desperate for some new wonder weapon to turn the tide of war. Göring has put out the call, and people everywhere are fighting for his attention, desperate for one of the highly prized government contracts that will feed them, provide shelter out of the many nightly bombed cities, and most importantly, keep them off the front lines. The reigning champion of this was Eugen Sonnier, who for 6 years managed to convince the German High Command to fund his idea for an orbital bomber plane, which was basically a plane he was going to stick a load of rockets on and fire down a train track. But it would work, provided they give him a lot of...
This shit looks like one of the Dubai mega projects that is supposedly underway, like in literal modern Dubai. They present shit like this like every other day. Oh yeah, we're gonna make a train that goes into outer space, actually, and then like delivers the goods on the other side of the city. Yeah. we're also gonna have a bus that fucking goes to Mars, you know. I haven't heard it pronounced that way, but I always thought it was spelled, yeah, like not Luftwaffe, but Luftwaffe with an E. I'm not pronouncing it correctly. Luftwaffe, which is how my German grandfather always pronounced it. Yo, was he an electrician? I'm just kidding, man. But don't ask him why he moved to Argentina. No, I'm fucking kidding. Don't send me to a monastery, please.
Cash, a big staff of researchers, a fancy research laboratory, and most importantly, give him more stuff than his leading rival Werner von Braun, so he could give him and the rest of the Society for Space Travel, who thought his ideas were too stupid to ever work,
Die Möglichkeit der Weltraumfahrt. The possibility, I think. That's kind of reminding me of some Dutch. The possibility of what? Like space travel, I guess? Like Fahrt, I know is to do with travel, but I'm not sure what Weltraum means.
the middle finger. Anyway, where was I? Right, so everyone who is smart and has a technical mind has pretty much figured out they can escape the horrors of war by, well, becoming a Nazi scientist. And out of all the generals and commanders Nazi Germany has left, Göring is the one with the power and the resources.
Actually, my family has 2 generations of deserting the army in the 1940s, so I'm all for those jokes. God damn, I always find it fascinating when people know their family history that far back. Like basically almost 100 years into the past. Bro, I don't know what my fucking grandfather did, you know? Like, holy shit. Almost like all of my grandparents were already dead by the time I was around, so like I was a real fucking latecomer. My great grandfather showed up back at home one day while France was still occupied and refused to speak about what he had gone through, whereas my great uncle stole a chicken and a bike when he was in Poland and impersonated a farmer to sneak away. Hope nobody spoke to him, because then the charade is immediately up. Somebody comes up to you and says Grzegorz Bręczyszczykiewicz, and you're like, oh mein Gott, ich bin... I don't know fucking how to say Gott in German.
To make it happen, and with now things so desperate, there's very little he won't agree to. Many things have crossed his desk, from giant tanks and rocket fighters to laser guns and tornado cannons. Some have got...
Yeah, that's exactly the type of shit I was talking about. Both the Soviets, literally every fucking country worked on some stupid ass shit back then.
into production, but most are the work of fantasy, and none have yet given the Germans the technological edge they so desperately crave, though that tornado cannon was used in combat. Once. It missed. But now a new concept sits on Göring's desk, and it has potential. He reaches out and helps himself to another eclair, stuffing the chocolatey, creamy delight into his face as his piggy eyes glaze over. The people in front of him, still living on civilian rations, starving as they watch Göring shove yet another eclair into his face hole. I've no idea if that's true. He's just very fat. You know, you don't get to that size on military rations by shoving a few pork pies.
Did he just do that to some kind of screen? Because this doesn't look like a picture. Why would you do this to a screen? Just print out a picture and... Oh, man.
He's down your front. He picks up the plans, studying them carefully. A new type of plane. It had no tail, no propellers, no control surfaces. Its shape is bizarre, radical almost, and yet it can carry a ton of bombs over 600 miles and fly faster than any Allied plane known. This is the weapon that Göring has been looking for, and he eyes it greedily, much like the eclairs. This is the 229, the Horton Ho. Now, we have a lot to talk about when it comes to this particular aircraft, of which I will admit to being a bit of a fan of, which you can now fly for free in War Thunder, if you like to torture yourself by grinding for 4 years in a barely playable, unfinished game that constantly begs you for money. And I can say that because they don't sponsor me.
I was about to say, okay, he's not sponsored by War Thunder. For a second there, I thought I know what he's doing. I wonder when this took place, considering how hard food was for the common people to get by the end of the war. Oh, he was talking, he was talking about Göring, which is, you know, upper brass of the Nazi war machine. So they were no fucking common people. They had like all of the like food they could fucking want. You know, classic. You know, same thing happened in fucking Soviet Russia. People starving in the front lines, like literally resorting to robbing the places. Like Soviets were robbing the fucking Polish villages they came to rescue, which were robbed by the fucking Germans who came here to conquer it. And all while back home, Stalin was eating some fucking pork made by the finest chef he could fucking enslave and then beat to death because he was paranoid that he's gonna poison him. Classic story.
Nor probably ever will. So, if you like occasional cutting remarks of just how shit the management team is behind War Thunder, you've subscribed to the right channel. The Horton Hull was the brainchild of two brothers. Well, the Horton brothers, obviously. Brothers Romer and Walter, who had approached Göring with their prototype collection.
Missed opportunity to actually use some fucking footage from War Thunder of that plane, because that could work as a stock footage of a plane that, you know, basically doesn't exist.
Of the Horton H9, something they had developed during Germany's pre-war glider club program. Gliders were Germany's way of bypassing the Treaty of Versailles, of testing new aviation designs, training pilots, discovering potential new pilots through civilian programs. You know, many of Germany's fighter aces would start life off as glider hobbyists. And if you don't know what the Treaty of Versailles is, imagine France tells you you're not allowed to do something. That's how you get Brexit Nazis. That's how you get Nazis. The Horton H9 was developed by the brothers as a way of testing the idea of a flying wing design, to see if it could create gliders with a vastly improved operational range. It didn't, Mike. Now, contrary to popular belief, flying wings were not a new concept, and had been around since the 1920s after a number of swept-wing biplane prototypes by British inventor J.E. Dune. Dune, I'm going with Dune, led to the Western Hill Pterodactyl, which were a number of tailless flying wing prototypes, some of which are now appearing on the screen, that you will be able to see if you stop playing your game and listening to this.
Oh man, they are so fucking cute.
Background. And I don't care if you're too poor to afford 2 screens. You gotta minimize and look at these things.
Okay, that one just looks very weird. What?
It's gone now. I mean, we waited for you, but you obviously had other things to do. This in turn was rivaled by Hugo Junkers, who was less interested in building fighter planes and glider concepts, and instead wanted to create an all-wing transatlantic passenger plane, which would eventually become the Junkers G-38, which still had a tail, and wasn't powered by rockets, which I'm very sad about. It wouldn't be till the 1936 Bale, and wasn't powered by rockets.
Is this like a joke? Is this like one of those crazy Russian fiction novel covers? There is no way this is actually a thing that was even considered for a second, right? What the fuck is it?
Rockets, which I'm very sad about. It wouldn't be till the 1936 Berlin Olympics that Russian designer Boris Ivanovich Sharanovsky, who had worked independently under Stalin, would show off one of the world's first functioning flying wing designs, competing in air races directly against the Horton H1 in the 9th glider competitions. Competing designs would also be featured by the now famed Ukraine designer Antonov, though these were merely considered motorized gliders and the Russians would do very little with the concept. The giant flying wing aircraft known as the Kanalan 7, which had previously dominated the early Russia strong meme scene of the late 90s and early 2000s, with its 16 engines and battleship cannons, is sadly a creation of early Photoshop, and the actual plane was a hell of a lot more basic looking. I mean, it still looks fucking awesome. Kinda shit as a bomber though. In fact, this is widely regarded as one of the worst planes ever built, but if you get a bunch of these information, it's impressive as all hell. If you wanted to see a real flying wing, then look no further than America, because the US has to do everything bigger and better than everybody else, obviously. Cheston L. Elshman, the most American man who ever lived, built the Elshman FW5, known more more commonly as the wing, and is frankly one of the weirdest things to ever take to the
Those are some fucking radical designs, bro. Holy hell. I'm fucking loving it. Every second of this footage.
sky. But the other design, probably the more famed design by the one and only Jack Northrop, I'm not going to show you just yet. Let's get back to our little Horton and the primary reason for making this video. Flying wings are not unique, and this is not the first one to take to the skies, though it may be the world's first jet-powered one. And this is not the reason Hearabus, or Verabus if you want, and the like are obsessed with this machine. In fact, it's rather more complicated than that. So if you take a good long look at the Horton, maybe tilt your head slightly, squint a bit, take a step back, further back, and maybe, just maybe, it kinda looks like a stealth bomber. And that theory might not be entirely mad. Certainly it is the right shape, and there are lots of little facts that fit neatly into this theory, giving credit to the idea that not only is the Horton potentially a stealth bomber, but it may have partially inspired the design of the B-2 Spirit. And I love the B-2 Spirit. I would make sweet, sweet love to that plane, if they would ever let me near one. Which is probably why they won't ever let me near one.
I was about to say.
So if it's true, why make this video? Why bother to discredit anyone who believes it? Well, like all things in life, the facts are not as simple as you may understand them. If you're a hardcore fan of Lazerpig, you may remember a very badly edited, hastily thrown together stream I did back on my birthday in December. You don't have to watch it, it's very, painful. But if you take anything from it, take from it two things. Firstly, the Second World War is such an overly complicated thing, spread out on such a vast scale, that the average mind becomes overwhelmed, and often it demands a simple explanation to.
Oh wait, is this myth just because of what it looks like? I am 100% sure, it's just because of the shape and the general design, while the idea behind the actual plane was something so fucking far removed from what an actual stealth bomber is.
Sum up a very complicated situation. Terry Pratchett called this lies to children, by ways of oversimplifying complicated things to the point where a child can understand them, even if that simplification makes the fact wrong. His example being the way rainbows are made by raindrops splitting light. This is how light refraction works, but is not how rainbows are made. Technically. Well, it is and it isn't. It's got more to do with where you are standing relative to the sun, and anyway, so complicated is the Second World War, and so ingrained into Western culture is the importance of the war, that a lot of governments still propagate myths that overplay the importance of certain events, or downplays the mistakes they made, and a lot of those myths are still taught to people in school, or historical documentaries, even if they have been widely disproven.
I mean, yeah, again, the victors write the history, so obviously some things that you learned might not be necessarily true. Guys, don't get me, I know you're gonna be shocked, but I think the US invasion of Iraq was not so they could, take out all the terrorist bad guys, necessarily. I know it's a crazy conspiracy theory. I know that what might be taught in school. I know it's crazy to consider that Uncle Sam had exterior motives. I know that is insane. But that's how sometimes it goes. I need to turn myself a little bit darker because the sun is frying outside of my face and it looks really weird.
There is also the case of questionable sources, which can sometimes come from erroneous intelligence reports or after-action reports, which were typically dramatized or edited for propaganda reasons. And well, that was more common for the Germans, with their propaganda division often.
And it's also very important to remember that information that you find in history books that predates the year 2000s. Let's arbitrarily pick the year 2000, right? Information that predates the year 2000 is up to newspapers, books, eyewitness reports, everything that can be easily manipulated by the government. The internet is fucking social media is a mistake, okay? But also it provides it provides like context to media narrative that you might have never gotten. So that's why everything you find in history books is highly like edited by highly edited usually by the country that fucking benefits the most from those editions, I think my favorite myth, and the one I had believed for a very long time until it was debunked by both old documents and US's own government website, is that the Japanese were given / accepted an unconditional surrender. They did not. For example,
Shooting apparent battle scenes if the lighting was wrong or if the commander's pose wasn't quite heroic enough. Other nations, even on the Allied side, were not exactly being clean, with even a massive scandal erupting in the UK over the BBC's choice editing of what was going on. I mean, can you imagine the BBC lying to people? When would that ever happen today?
Crazy, huh?
And that's honestly just
like the only journalists that are hell-bent on giving you the truth, the actual unedited truth, usually end their career early via ways of, game ending themselves in their home via like 20 shots to the back of the head.
Of a very, very deep iceberg. To cut a long story short, you can't come up with any...
And then everybody who says they witnessed something suspicious gets in a mysterious car crash.
Theory on World War II, and you'd be guaranteed to find something that would back it up. Be that a random comment a general made or some scribble in a margin somewhere. And this is not helped by our second problem. As I pointed out in the Drunk Rant stream, what happened after the war is just as important as what happened during. As after the war, you had a lot of German scientists and generals with nothing to really do. Not all of them were convicted of war crimes, either because they escaped or because they were genuinely innocent. But staying in Germany, these people would have faced a life of moderate poverty. Everything valuable had been looted, and what hadn't been looted had been blown to oblivion. But a new world was forming, one with America at the helm, and like a boomer at a strip club, the US was throwing a lot of money around. What happened next was a slurry of memoirs of various German commanders, often written by themselves, proclaiming that their fight against the Russians was unfair, that the Russians threw endless wave after wave of their own men till the Germans had ran out of bullets, that supply issues and bad management on the upper echelons of the Nazi Party were responsible for Germany's defeats, and most importantly, not them. It's not my fault, they cry. It was Hitler for obsessing over Stalingrad. It was Alfred Rosenberg for turning Ukraine into slaves instead of allies. It was Goebbels for not releasing new tanks because he wanted to parade them through Berlin first. It was because we were fighting on multiple fronts. It was because of the rain, the mud, blah blah blah, etc, etc. Essentially trying to convey the message that had they had everything they needed, had they been given everything they demanded, they would have won. The unmitigated champion of this is Heinz Guderian, who, according to himself, pretty much invented German tank doctrine single-handedly. He didn't, but that's for a different video. Now, the reason they did this is because they wanted jobs in the new armies being formed by NATO in response to the rise of the USSR, and the scientists wanted the same. Many of them would go on to claim such ridiculous achievements such as that of Italian scientist Giuseppe Bellizio, who claimed that the Germans had been working on saucer-shaped aircraft, many of which had gone into space. This formed the basis of the Nazi UFO myth in later years. Simply over-exaggerating claims or...
Oh, I fucking hate when somebody just makes some shit up on his resume and then we have tinfoil fucking idiots using that as a basis for an entire belief system, essentially. Holy shit, man.
Straight-up lying became the easy meal ticket of the German scientist. It guaranteed safe extradition to the US, a steady paycheck, and a comfortable laboratory in which they could experiment to their heart's content with little regard to if or not they actually achieved anything. The US had already achieved its end goal, which was to keep the vast bulk of German technology and its inventors out of Russian hands. Anything they did end up producing was simply considered a bonus. In fact, a lot of them weren't even taken seriously. Werner von Braun spent most of his time in America giving talks and speeches to rocket hobbyist groups in the US, up until the 1960s when he was finally hired by NASA. I'll do a separate video on him and his impact in the US space program at a later date because it is quite interesting. But anyway, knowing all of that, it's not hard to understand that a lot of German scientists would exaggerate their claims. The Hortons were among them. The Horton hull was captured as part of Operation Paperclip, the US's commando-style raid to liberate advanced Nazi technology and scientists before the Russians could get them, and naturally, they wanted to know what the fuck this thing was. Neither of the Horton brothers were successfully extradited to the US, as, contrary to popular belief, neither had really been part of the Horton hull project. After fitting their glider design with jet engines, the prototype crashed, killing the test pilot, and the project was handed over to Gotthard Wabenfabrik, who designed the actual Horton we know today. The brothers, in an attempt to stay relevant and off the front lines, applied for Göring's America Bomber project, of which they were accepted. After the war, the brothers attempted to negotiate with the US and the UK. At the time, the UK was picking up every aircraft designer it could find, as it fully believed aircraft had played the most important role in the war. The UK had utterly dominated the aviation scene and was looking to capitalise. However, neither the UK nor the US were interested in the Horton brothers, and this is where we start to see those claims. Reimar Horton, who later fled to Argentina, then attempted to sell his designs to China. This is where he made the claim that the Horton had been designed as a stealth plane, using a mixture of charcoal dust and glue to create a primitive anti-radar coating that would have helped it stay hidden in the specific radar frequencies the British were using. Now, such a claim had merit. It was widely believed that the coating, combined with the general shape of the aircraft's cross-section, would have made it almost invisible to the British home chain radar system. And so the myth was born. Nazi stealth fighter, Nazi stealth bomber. This is a backward engineered Nazi stealth bomber. No one can convince me otherwise. Hitler had secret stealth tech. Entire Antarctica base invisible to naked eye because advanced Nazi stealth tech. And this bullshit persisted for quite some time.
Yes, 5 minutes after 10 p.m. History Channel always fucking turns to this for some reason.
Until, of course, some people from Grumman, the company who designed and built the P-2 Spirit, decided to test that claim. Because you see, until then, they had never heard of this fucking thing. They built a replica of the V3 Horton, the final design of the aircraft intended for mass production, and tested it within their RCS lab and found that, no, it was not a stealth bomber. While considerably more stealthy than most other German planes around at the time, the British radar systems had no problem picking it up, even when it tried to fly at low altitude. And of course, Grumman had made something of a technical error when building their prototype. It was made entirely out of wood. Now, wood does have some interesting radar-absorbing properties, which had intrigued the team, but wood alone does not a stealth fighter create, Mr. Sparks. And the actual design of the V3 Horton had steel tubes throughout the chassis, of which the wooden panels were bolted onto, meaning Grumman's replica was actually far more stealthy than the original V3. And to make matters worse, the last surviving model of the Horton was tested by the Smithsonian Institution, who found no evidence of the charcoal glue known as carbon black. But Grumman themselves tested the compound and found that its radar-absorbing properties were, lacking, and would have had no impact on the aircraft's stealth claim. That should have put to bed this myth once and for all. But
This is so fucking annoying when it comes to one piece of shit lying like this, because then it takes so much manpower, so much testing, so much resources just to disprove everything this person said, so that there aren't people spreading this fucking misinformation campaign. And then when you disprove everything, some fucking idiots still will just feed other people misinformation for no goddamn reason. This feels like it's going to get into flat earth level territory between people debunking and others blindly believing. Of course it's gonna get there, you know. Holy.
it has persisted, as once again, if you squint slightly, it does kind of look like a stealth bomber, so maybe...
Yep, that's it. I just look at it and I'm that's a space bomber actually. What are my aviation engineering credentials? I play a lot of War Thunder actually. So checkmate, fucking liberal.
just maybe, even if Horton's design didn't work, then maybe Grumman took inspiration from its design and perfected it, because it does look like a stealth bomber, doesn't it? Alright, remember that American flying wing by Jack Northrop I said I'd show you later? This is it here. This is the YB-35, flown in 1940, 4 years before the Horton, as a proposed prototype to a long-range bomber aircraft. The project was accepted, but was plagued by so many delays that by 1944 it was so behind schedule, the Army cancelled their order in favour of a more conventional design. The suggestion was put forward to equip the plane with jet engines, to which the Americans refused to take seriously, until a fact-finding mission to the UK to look at aircraft prototypes. That prototype being the Mosquito, which the Americans were considering purchasing at the time. The story goes that one American general leaned towards an observing British scientist and made the joke, "You know, some people say we should be investing in jet planes." To which the scientist turned and said, "You should. You want to see ours?" The plane he was shown was the Gloucester E-2839, a British prototype for a jet plane. Shortly afterwards, the Americans purchased several British jet designs and began experimenting with them. In 1947, 2 YB-35s were fitted with jets and flown as the YB-49. Now look at this and Horton's design and tell me which one you think looks more like a B-2 Spirit. Because the same company who built this in 1940 went on to build this in 1989. The Horton brothers and their jet-powered glider, though a fantastic and fascinating aircraft, had absolutely nothing to do with it. So if someone comes up to you and says the Nazis invented the stealth bomber, you now have just cause to beat their ass with a tire iron and scream, "No, they fucking didn't! What the? Where did you get? Do you even know anything? What the?"
Actually, I get my information from a reputable source. That is the History Channel, 5 minutes after 10 p.m. So you're wrong, liberal. Left wing destroyed me things. Epic Reddit gold moment, huh?
Yeah, all I need to please is that. Touch it, stroke it, and undress it. I can see every part, nothing hides in the heart.
I think this video, YouTube, like specifically not anybody on the channel, but like YouTube itself recommended me a bunch, how to kill a god. But that is 1 hour 20. I'm 100% not watching that on the channel. But yeah, very interesting. Lazerpig definitely has some fucking interesting things to say. So great channel to check out. And yeah, that was indeed funny and very informative. Hey, now some Department of Defense dipshit posted actual military design specs to win a war thunder discount argument, so maybe they're onto something. Oh, not even once, man. It happened again this week, actually. Like the 6th time, man. I love War Thunder so much because of that.